Tim Jones and I are headed to NAM, which stands for National Association of Music Merchants. And in one building in Anaheim, at any given moment, there will be well over 100,000 people, which makes me stop and go, the city of Odessa or the city of Midland, Texas, or how many cities of Cross Plains are in one building at one time? Speaking of Cross Plains, Mike, who's our friend?
Hey, this is a really good friend of mine, at least on most days when he puts up with me. This is Mr. Joseph JJ Firenza. I met him when he was a student teacher, I believe, in Andrews, and I gave him a hard time about he did all the work, but he did it all for free because none of the rest of the staff seemed to be working at the time, you know.
And see, I've known JJ a long time too, and I don't even know if he remembers how long I've known him. I knew him when he was playing trombone in the jazz band at lunchtime, and I would come in and try to call on his director as the road rep for Andrews at the time. So I at least remember him. It's not like I ever introduced myself, but I've been seeing him for a while now.
You go back further than I do, but we've kind of kept in touch, you might say, over the years through his Breckenridge years and his Andrews years and his stopped teaching for a little bit years and take a sabbatical and back to teaching again now at Cross Plains with Jesus Perez. So he's a really amazing teacher and a good friend. But the purpose of our podcast today, Derek, is we want to go into the logistics and how we set up for when events happen within our programs, whether it be a bus accident or a student who injures themselves or whatever the situation is, a lockdown. It could be there's no way to categorize everything. But this young man, and I'll call him young because I'm so dadgum old, but this young man has been through some stuff, and he's going to go through the things that he's learned through this process and the things that he hasn't learned through this process that we're going to ask questions about and kind of dig into his brain a little bit. But on November 19th of 2021, there was a bus accident. And in that bus accident, with some buses from Andrews, there was two fatalities, and there was lots of injuries, and there was lots of trauma. And this is not a documentary of this bus accident. It's very well documented.
But let's establish background first. You were teaching in Andrews at the time.
Yes, he was assistant band director at Andrews at the time.
And you were on one of the buses as this happened.
Yeah, I was on the second bus. So he didn't get directly hit, but we got sideswiped pretty good. So.
Yeah, and because of the circumstances, he ended up with in my opinion, a large portion of the immediate aftermath of what needed to happen with the students and dealing with administrators and law enforcement and parents and all involved. And like all of us as band directors, we think we're prepared. But I think he'll go into this really deeply because we've got a good set of notes for this. But there's so many things after I read these notes, and I went to a workshop that he did for, was it Team EA?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for Team EA. And it was amazing that I look back at my time as a band director when I'd get on the bus with my little first aid kit in a briefcase.
Yeah.
And a bus list that was sort of okay and kind of correct. Mm-hmm. And we would just jump on a bus and we would head on out, and we thought we were ready. So JJ, you're an amazing person. You've gone through a lot of stuff. This will probably break down into 2, maybe 3 different podcasts. We'll see how it flows. The first part of this is going to be the logistics of preparing, and having yourself ready for in case events happen. So JJ.
Okay, so let me make sure I understand. We're going to talk first about planning for the unexpected.
Yes.
In other words, instead of just your little briefcase and first aid kit, nobody ever thinks or plans for this to happen. But in case it does, here's a good idea. And I look up at the top left of my screen because that's where he is on my computer. But a good idea of things that you know now that would be great to have ready, right? Is that where we're headed? Okay.
Right. Exactly. You're exactly right, Derek.
So one of the things that kind of made that whole situation worse was the fact that we couldn't dismiss the kids until the state troopers finished a report, basically. Mm-hmm. And one of the reports is they need to know where everybody was when the wreck went down. So then they did all 3 buses. So kids that got off bus 1 that were with us were sitting where they were supposed to. So you think about how that went. And bus 2, same story. Bus 3 wasn't even on the interstate, thank the Lord, but they had to take all this report. So one of the things that we found out very quickly was the way you do your bus seating matters and where you sit matters because it's not really it can be for insurance and for a police report because of all that stuff, but also it also kind of helps with classroom management and everything as well. So, like those times where something happened on the bus, but y'all can't figure out where so and so was on the bus because something happened.
Yeah.
Now you have a bus list going, so why do we have this person here and that person there? And on this document, I have an example of like the bus list we used. It was very simple. It was one of those, just put your name down and just go down the row
Nice.
kind of list. And then when that didn't work like it should, we kind of had to figure out, all right, so we have to make an actual seating chart, and the kids actually have to sit in this seating chart because if there's a change, you have to show the change on the chart because if something happens, you have to turn in the chart, et cetera, et cetera. Um, and that's one of the things that, right off the bat, as a band director or coach or teacher, admin, whatever, that's not something that crosses our mind. We're just trying to get from point A to point B. But that stuff matters in the long run. And it's good for,
Okay.
again, for classroom management.
Can I offer just some quick context because we have a national group listening. So many people know of this incident locally, but essentially your high school had 3 buses on the way to a football game.
Yeah.
The first bus was involved in a collision,
Mhm.
and the second buses were following close enough that they were somewhat involved in it. Third bus was okay, as far as I know, as far as contact. But
Yeah.
the point being is what you're describing is the people on the first bus who were involved in the major contact had to sit on that bus while the state troopers did their business.
Well, not on the bus.
Okay, well,
They did
but you couldn't release anybody.
yeah, they did like an outline of like where to sit in the gym. We were in Big Spring when that all went down.
Sure.
So
So just so everybody knows what you're talking about, that's all I was trying to do.
yeah. So where they kind of were sitting, where was that? Oh yeah. So that we had to spend a lot of time going through that, and that took about an hour. At that point, everybody was probably done.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
can only imagine the emotion and everything going on if all this had been done in advance.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of the major point, right?
Mm.
Get all this done in advance because people don't remember things exactly the way they go. And just for all those listeners out there, this document will be ready for download. It's a Google Doc, and all the links for different bus lists and et cetera. They'll have hyperlinks
Mhm.
listed to it. So please feel free to pull through there on the Ask Mike portion, and you can use that to your advantage. That's just telling people they can find this, so you don't have to sit there and out there in the audience and try to write everything down. This will be provided. This will be
Right.
provided.
And it's fairly detailed as I look at it. The bus list, how come? Because you want to know who's on the bus. You got to know where they were on the bus. And it just helps avoid a lot of questions if you can do that based off of your accurate bus list.
Mhm.
Yes, and it's a. I know there's all the trauma and emotion too, but as things filled out, I know she put on here accident reports for the bus list for police and insurance
Mhm.
because we're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars that insurance companies don't necessarily want to pay.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to make them the bad guy, but they are companies. And so all this stuff has to be taken care of so that you can recoup the equipment. You lost a ton of equipment.
Mm.
The bus was totaled. So there is that logistical side of it.
Both
They've kind of
buses were
both
totaled.
buses were
Yeah.
totaled. Wow. So those sort of like $500,000 a piece.
Yeah.
For those buses. So yeah, so it's a logistical financial thing, which is not as important as the emotional trauma part, obviously, when people are injured. But it is part of the equation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And one of the things, really, is to just get it over with, to get out of there as quick as you can, because a lot of those kids were just, over it. First off, and then second, trying to make sure where they were, especially when they were going to the ER and all this stuff.
Yeah,
You
some disappeared in ambulances, right?
hmm
So you're like, who went?
Yeah,
You know,
and of
the
course,
paramedics don't. Can I see the band director?
mhm,
Yeah, they just loaded them and went.
yeah,
Yeah.
and it's just one of those deals, and it's just good to know. You know, the only blessing that came out of that day was that we didn't lose a kid.
Yeah.
That was it. After that, it was a hot mess. But one of the things that we also, kind of dropped the ball on, one of the fail safes is that you have the bus list, but you only had your bus list. So I had my bus list. The other director on bus 3 had his bus list. Well, the bus 1 list is gone. We don't know where it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it was on bus 1. So,
But I would defend you in that you didn't drop the ball. It's how we all did it. You know, if I'm on bus 5 with my kids, I've got the bus 5 list. I don't have the other list. But go ahead.
So,
Go ahead.
are you saying that every director should have are you supposed to have a copy of all the buses?
Yes.
every like physical copy and also have access to it like on Google Drive, just in case, you leave it on the bus, you still have access to it in some way. So you just know. And you can also use it as like a checklist type deal of they're on the bus or they went home with their parents after the football game or after a contest or anything
Yeah.
like that. Or you can even mark it to where we used to do, I think we used to like normal black and white. The kid was always going to be on the bus every time they were on trip. If the kid was like in orange, they're a cheerleader. So they ride with us sometimes, for contest days. And so same story with like varsity football.
Gotcha.
So you can kind of mix and match how you want to do it. But the really and truly, one of the things I would say is make sure everyone has a copy just in case.
Yeah.
If something like that happens, or if you have to deal with classroom management and bus 1 band director is not there, but bus 3 band director is there. So it's like, well, why are you sitting next to Johnny when you're on the literal other side of the bus?
Yeah.
So again, another tool, it's a great tool for classroom management, and one of the other things too, I know this is really hard to convince students to do, but unfortunately, like those kids understood it better than like kids I've taught before and the kids I'm teaching right now. One of the things too is like, let's all be real. When I was one of those kids too, the sleep in the aisles kind of deal, or you have some sort of strange form in the seat, somehow sleeping, one of the things is they do have to sit right. One of the reasons I was still able to like function during all that went down was, I don't know why I did this, but so that bus that I was on actually had seatbelts on it. And I decided to put it on just in case, because right in front of me was like this metal bar for a handrail. So I was thinking that day for some reason, it's like, oh, we're going on I-20 and sand trucks or the bane of
Oh, yeah.
existence. They don't know how to drive past whatever the speed limit is. And we'll watch, we have to hit the brake too hard or squirrels jumps in the way or something. And I'll go flying into this bar. So I just put that seatbelt on, and it actually kept me from being able to do my job, basically.
Nice.
Was the only reason. And so that's why I try to tell other directors, make sure that your kids are sitting right on the bus, because a lot of things can happen real fast.
Yeah.
And I mean, I was talking to a band director, and he was telling me about one time band booster was walking on the bus, and the driver hit the brake just a little too hard, and she fell forward, and she broke her arm.
Yeah.
And it wasn't even a big deal why he had to he just hit the brake too hard, and she fell over. That's just how that works. That's a lot of mass. That's a lot of momentum stopping. So,
Yeah. And you never know. I had the kids will try to sleep on the floor. And we had a situation where they slept on the floor, and one of the treads came off the tire of the bus.
Oh, man.
And it ripped through the deal, and it hurt them. They were injured. They weren't severely injured, but it was kind of scary. Yeah, because it put a hole through the wheel well right there where the seat was, and just kind of put some gashes in her arm. So we had to take her and get her. But if she had not been laying on the floor, but I understand your point. But man, that's hard to do. But we got to. I spent a whole summer in the Skyrider when I was a thinner man, sleeping in the rack on the bus because there weren't enough seats. So I'd climb up with a rack and I'd sleep up there, and I'd talk about dangerous. Oh my gosh.
Sure say we went on a spring trip and we drove at night.
Yeah.
And I spent the entire trip sleeping lengthwise under 3 seats.
Yeah. Yeah. Now we don't think anything of it at the time, because especially when you're young, because the younger you are, the more invincible you think you are. You know what I'm praising?
Yeah.
As we get older, we're kind of like, things can happen.
I'm just like that. Just getting up in the morning, going, "Oh man, I don't like this stiff muscle stuff." Anyway, I can speed.
Just wait, friend. Just wait, friend.
Oh, I know.
The warning lights hadn't even started blinking on this boy.
Not yet. I'm gonna prolong it as best I can now.
But our
Let's say
would have on the digital binders
Mhm.
with Google Drive, because with all the things we do with Google,
Yeah.
with Google Docs, just do your bus chart on Google Docs, and that way, if you get in a situation, you can pull it up.
Mhm.
As long as you've got some, you can use your phone as a hotspot and pull it up and show it right to them.
Right.
How cool is that?
Mhm. And you can also make a lot of that stuff made offline, so you can pull it up. Like right now, I have my notes up, but it's offline. I don't have any kind of internet connection.
Yeah.
So that's another nice thing. And also share it with your administrators and share it with your school nurses, share it with everyone, even if they don't want it. Congrats, they have it.
Yeah, just mail it to them.
Because, again, the easier they can get a hold of that stuff if something happens and when something happens, they have it.
Yeah.
And that kind of goes into like travel information. So you want that parent guardian contact, you want health warnings. Like a kid has an EpiPen, then because they're allergic to ants. Does the kid have an EpiPen? No. So you have to carry the EpiPen. And most of the time, school nurses take care of that.
Yeah.
And if you are a band director or coach or anything, and you're not friends with your school nurse, you're doing your job a lot harder. You need to become friends with them immediately. Because they do a way more than what people think it is. They do a lot of documentation, and they have, things that can actually help you be more prepared as well. And we'll get into that later. But really and truly, you want those health warnings and you want their health insurance. I've not had this happen. I've heard people have told me this has happened where kid gets sick or gets hurt, and ambulance, you walk over to, like at a football game, go over to the ambulance, and you need to bring a kid, they need to go for whatever reason, and they'll ask for insurance.
Yeah.
You're there.
That is the truth, by the way. I've had to do that before.
I have not had that issue, which is nice, but I could totally see it, and they want proof of insurance right then and there, which is crazy to me. But it matters. So have that information out just in case, again. And again, who needs that? Every band director. So make a binder with all that information, make it a Google Drive. You can have them fill out a physical copy. You can scan it into a flash drive, put it on Google Drive, call it a day. Or you can have them, I've seen programs use like Google Forms and make their own and do that as well. Every director needs to have that. Every administrator needs to have that. And in some cases, it's depending on the school district, your band boosters can have that too. Like, for instance, I've had instances where band boosters were also our bus drivers or our truck drivers or whatever. And they technically they work for the school district in most capacity, or they're just one of those volunteers. It kind of depends on them, but there are some, FAFSA, HIPAA, all that stuff.
Yeah.
You kind of have to go through those loops. But if you can get it to them too, they might could use that as well.
Now, I'd like to add one little tiny thing to that has happened in my career with another staff member, is not only your kids, but your other staff members. You can't make them give you their health information.
Right.
You know what I mean? But I would always say, because they had mine, because if something happened, they knew what my insurance, my group number was. It was through Blue Cross Blue Shield, whatever. And they had all that information, because if I have an episode at a game and I'm passed out, I would really like to have someone to have my health insurance information when they call the paramedic or so. This is Mr. Mike Lunny. Here's the stuff.
Yeah.
And I had my medical form was with the kids in the old days with the big giant book.
Oh yeah.
But eventually it was all done electronically. Yeah. We just did electronically.
And it's just kind of it's funny to me with that kind of stuff. Like that's again stuff that you have, but you don't realize how much you actually need that access to it. We got kind of lucky because I think bus 3 had the binder and it ended up on bus 2 because of weird things happening that
Yeah.
day. But we had that binder with all that information. That could have easily been on bus 1 though, and could not find that information.
Yeah.
So that's why you want to share it as much as you can because most of those that day I think administrators were pulling out binders, making copies, just going crazy
Yeah.
over that stuff because they had to. It was just one of those things.
Yeah.
I'm just going to say this out loud. Everybody makes fun of me for my redundant nature, but I'm telling you, it sounds like this is a situation where the more redundancy you can create, the safer and better it is for everyone.
And that was something we all learned the hard way. And is it annoying? Yes. Is it hard? Yes. You have to do it. If you want to have a peace of mind when something happens, you have it ready to go. Because within the first 5 minutes, all our fail safes like that completely shattered.
Yeah.
And that was just how it was. Like, for instance, I was trying to make a list of names of kids that were on the bus going to the place they held us in Big Spring. At that point, my body had gone into shock and my fine motor skills were shutting down. Like, I was trying to put the letter L.
Yeah, you couldn't even write.
I couldn't write
that
it.
point.
Yeah, it was pointless. Like, and an administrator just grabbed the pen and pencil and said, "I'll make the list. I'll take care of that," because she knew like I was out.
I was going to say, it's one of those things that probably seems hard until it's not.
Yeah.
Or until you need it. And then you go, I got it. So,
yeah,
definitely. So, but yeah, I would try to have as much information on everyone you're carrying as much as you can. And there's times like won't even let a kid go in until a parent tells me like their health insurance information, because some parents don't want to do that
right.
for whatever reason.
And some
Yes.
don't have. And it's a really prideful, touchy issue, that they don't have health insurance. And so it's a tough one to go, hey, I just need to have bad documentation that you told me that you don't have health insurance.
Yeah. And just in trying to keep that as neutral as possible.
Yeah. And not be judgmental.
Yeah. In which at the same, I don't blame them. I spent a year on private healthcare, and I can officially tell everyone it's not bad, but man, it's expensive.
Yeah.
A lot of money. I can understand.
Yeah. It is. Well, that kind of gets us through that portion of it. As far as like the logistics of that, I really appreciate you doing these notes and getting the hyperlinks in there, because that's going to help out people a lot. They can click on it. Do they have the ability to copy and reformat those?
I believe so.
Okay. That way they can make it fit what they need, what they need to do. Really cool.
And if they can't, then I'll just ignore the emails. And sorry, guys. No. I'll also point out to your wonderful viewers that if Mike Lunny asks you to be on this podcast, not only will he tell you all the things that we want to talk about, he'll give you homework over the things that. So I just want you to know, Alice asked me on the show, and he literally said, "So JJ, you have homework." And I was, wait 1 second here.
Hey, I was feeling less like Gorst at this point.
So I don't know. I keep telling people that, and they're like, "Oh, this is the reason why." I was like, I know the reason why. It's funny though.
Yeah.
To me. That's my sense.
That's the quiet part out loud.
Yeah. Sorry.
So if I ask you to be a guest out there, your initial response needs to be, "I'm kind of busy."
Yeah. Depends. Is it homework or extra credit?
Yeah. Do I just show up?
Sorry about that. Sorry.
No, that's fine. That's fine. Hey, and then the next thing on the list is inventory of all equipment, because we've all gone through that. I had one question for you. Do you keep track of the school or the kids' personal equipment?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, because we did, but I know lots of schools that don't. So go into that a little bit, JJ.
So one of the things, the head director at that time at Andrews, he did a lot of research before any of this happened. I think maybe his second year there. I'm not sure. But I think he called Tim and Derek quite a bit about that inventory at that time.
Right.
And he was looking for, and this is where I would ask Derek for some information in a minute, but um, you want to keep track of those instruments, and especially how old they are, because you want to know the value of those instruments. Because guess who wants to know when they get destroyed? Insurance. They're really picky about that kind of stuff too. You know, and I know there's programs out there like I think it's Cut Time is out there or something like that. Uh, who bought Charmers? I forgot now. I don't
I
even.
think it was Cut
Oh,
Time.
was
That's them. Yeah.
Yeah, because you can take pictures of the inventory and you can document things on it, and they can actually see what the equipment looks like. You can give them a whole portfolio.
And or if you don't want to pay that kind of stuff, again, Google Drive, Excel form, call it a day.
Yeah.
And what you want to do is to keep track of who has that instrument, because they want to know who does that, and also you want to know who has it too, because when you open the case and you notice the bell is caved in and Billy had it last and Billy says it wasn't him, well, sorry, Billy. I have some really bad news for you. You had it, and also you want to have that repair history too, because there are a couple times, like for instance, you don't want to do a flush to an instrument every year. That's probably like not a very good thing to do after a while, especially those older instruments. So you want to try to keep that. And I always liked how Darren did it. He always did it every like 4 years or something like that.
On a rotating. Yeah.
Yeah. And I always thought that was kind of smart, because you don't want to flush it out with chemicals every year, I don't think.
Yeah.
But in the purchase history of when did you buy it, where did you buy it, and how much, and determining the depreciation on stuff like that. And that's where I'm going to ask Derek to be like, hey, how do you do that?
Here's the thing, and it's kind of cool. There's an organization, Music Achievement Council. They put out some basic guidelines that they've gone through the industry and talked to different people about how to do it. And we can look it up for you. I mean, the music store can look it up for you. Most of the people listening could look it up. Just look up Music Achievement Council. And it's hidden in a document about how to approach your school board or your administration about getting new instruments. How often should you get new instruments? How long should an instrument last? And there's charts built into it that say, listen, the sousaphone, you should do this to it this often, this to it this often. And realistically, after 15 years, it's probably about time to start budgeting and planning for. And everybody in West Texas laughs because there's instruments out there that are as old as I am, and that's old.
Yeah.
It's all in a chart that way, and it's got depreciation schedules in it that you can just put numbers in, and it will explain to you how that works based on your buying price, etc. Again, it's no genius formula that I was a part of making up. It's out there, pretty much public knowledge if you know where to look. And it's, again, the Music Achievement Council has all kinds of documents about that. So if that helps.
Well, that definitely helps. I've never heard of that before.
I never have I.
Yeah, that's cool.
And now we all learned something.
Yeah. It's the only reason I do this, other than making millions.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Totally. I can see it. No, I'm kidding. And again, going back to why it matters, it takes a lot of stress off you at the end, trying to keep up with who had this clarinet that's 35 years old, and why is it on fire randomly? Like, we know who it is and why the instrument's broken and what has been done with it before. And there are also times where, what Derek was saying, I think he did that mostly to convince administration over there at that time to help give capital outlay so they could buy newer instruments at that time. So, but if he had not done that research, I don't think that would have been a very easy.
So he did it to the capital outlay portion, but then after the event, it was like, this was like gold.
And I'm also not trying to necessarily give too big of an advertisement for any one company, but Cut Time is great because every year when you send stuff in for summer repair, and or anytime you send something in for repair, it has a place to put what condition the instrument's in, what you had done to it at what time. And there is a place, because I've been asked this several times, that if the repair shop that you use says, listen, you're spending more money on this than the instrument's worth at this point, then they can actually notate that in that documentation. And it's not like the band director made it up. And it's not like the music store's necessarily trying to, it's just a fact. This is what the repair guy said. This keeps having this. And you can see how many times it's had the same problem because, and listen, I'm not going to get too wound up because it's not what this topic is, but some instruments have thinner metal. And if you straighten them out too many times, they're just paper-like. They won't hold up anymore. Some of those old tanks, you can take those dents out of them as many times as you want to, and they get ugly, but they still hold up. So you can notate that all in those programs. And I don't know necessarily that that the head guy does that all the time, but somebody on staff should be in charge of documenting the repair as it goes in and out.
Mhm.
So, and again, it lends itself in case of the unimaginable. So,
Weird how it all works out, hand in hand kind of deal.
Yeah.
But yeah, so for us though, it was like the best part of that was printing it and just giving it to admin, and they just took care of it after that. With that whole process. So that was, we talk about getting lucky.
Yeah. And, every event has its aftermath. And I like in the notes when you say they are looking for a way not to pay.
Yeah.
It's like trying to, if you've ever had a car wreck before, trying to get insurance to pay the right amount for a car wreck is just horrendous because they're in the business not to pay. They're in the business to collect premiums. And that's,
well, in that same field, that very store that you two are sitting in at the moment burned burned. We lost everything inside it. And I can't tell you, it was well over a year as the insurance companies, this person put it off on that person, put it off on that person, until it got down to who made the electrical cord that melted out of the back of a TV that set the place on fire.
Yeah.
But it took forever to get there.
Yeah.
And I'm just confirming your point. Nobody wants to be the place where insurance goes, it's you. And insurance doesn't want to pay until they can say, well, it's not insurable. Sorry, that's me interrupting again.
And I can also see where, like in a situation where you try to create the document at the end by memory, that the insurance company will then play hardball.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're going to go, what do you mean you don't have this like within a week? Well, no, we've got to go back and look at, so you're making stuff up, so it's, I could see, companies are companies. I mean, I'm not trying to be like,
Yeah.
but it is what it is.
It is.
If anyone who's ever dealt with health insurance, car insurance, life insurance, whatever it is, they're in the business to not pay if they can get away from it.
It's ironic.
So if we do our job correctly, as tedious and boring as it is, then when they say this is what equipment is gone, here it is.
Here it is. Yeah.
Here it is. We're just going to send you this entire document.
And so the next part I kind of want to talk about is the trainings that you probably want to do when you want to go through this, or even as simple as you went to the lunchroom and Billy ended up choking on his hot dog that he's eating for lunch.
Yeah.
So one of the things, all the school districts, you're required to do CPR first aid training. But are you listening? Sorry.
Oh, now I've been seen,
Yeah.
with the advent of smartphones, we're in the back on our smartphones, checking our emails.
Oops.
Yeah.
And I get
I like your point though. We're in there for a reason. It's life and death. Let's pay attention. This isn't just,
And I kind of get why people have the hard time with, like, I've been through this training I've been teaching for 20 years. I've done this training for 14 of those 20 years. I know what I'm doing. Yeah, but the practice helps, because what's going to happen is when you're in a situation like what we went through, or any situation that can happen as easily as walking down the hallway, you're going to default to what you think, what your body's going to know. And if it doesn't know how to do that right off the bat, you're going to default and not be able to do what needs to be done.
Yeah. I even knew within my band program which kids had received training because there might be a day I need some help.
Yeah.
So I would tell them, I'd say, hey, I know, so the 5 of you are Eagle Scouts, and I know you've had CPR training. So if Mr. Lane has an episode, I want one of you boys to take care of this for me. They just they would grin, but I knew they would be there. So it's a give and take, isn't it?
Yeah.
We don't know when we might need a little help.
And it's
Actually,
kind of interesting you bring that up because when I was in Breckenridge, I worked with Dane Richardson, who's at Holiday now.
yeah.
He really was big into training leadership into doing that as well.
I remember that. The
Yeah.
whole leadership team
Mhm.
took the CPR, all that, all of it. That was amazing to me. Yeah.
Mhm. And they took a lot of pride into knowing that kind of stuff. And they also we did other kind of trainings too, like mental health identification and stuff like that. We'll get into more of that too, but one of the so that's why it's just important to do that training as much as possible, or even if you can only get to do it once before marching season starts, take the time to really be accurate with it because like I said, you'll default because your body just goes into shock if
Yeah.
it'll see it. Even if you didn't get hit physically or nothing actually hits you, your brain's gonna go into fight or flight.
Mm-hmm.
And the first thing it cuts down is like, you don't need the small muscles. You need these big muscles to go really fast.
You need to breathe.
Yes.
And run.
And that's just how the body works because that's what happened when we were cavemen, I guess.
Yeah, I remember talking to Dane. If you're out there worried about how much is that going to cost to get my leadership, there's so many resources. I mean, it's like they were knocking his door down as soon as he called a few places in Little Breckenridge, Texas. Sorry, Breckenridge, but Little Breckenridge, Texas. That there were like 3 or 4 different entities that were like, "Yeah, we'll be there. Well, when do you need us?" So don't be afraid to call them because they've got resources.
Trying to think. One year we asked the Region Center to do trainings for us, and they came out and did that. We also got our school nurses to help with that process. And also I think she actually brought in the local EMTs and showed them like this is how bad it can actually get. So it kind of scared straight kind of deal. It's like, yes, really
Pay attention.
yeah. But they go through all of that stuff, and there's other resources too. Like there's local colleges, trade schools. They're even with them, they'll probably look at it as like a recruitment thing to do that training. You can always again look at your local EMT, your local transportation or fire department. I mean,
Okay.
they're because all of those guys are either certified or in some of them are actually trained to do the certification
Mm-hmm.
so they can do that. And of course, you can go through the American Red Cross and the American Heart Association. There's really not a difference anymore. They've simplified it for this reason because it used to be like adults were 30 and 2 unless this, and if they were like toddlers it was 15 and 2, and like there was a whole bunch of numbers at one time. My parents I find this funny. I don't know if you'll find this funny. 2 band directors make a doctor, right? 2 nurses made a band director. So my parents are both nurses.
Oh.
So and they were telling me like back in our day type talk with the CPR and stuff like that, and I just kind of looked at it and was like, I don't know, I'm okay with our numbers.
Yeah.
Way easier.
And with CPR, I should go back and get some training. But my understanding now is the mouth to mouth part is not part of the.
Yeah, they've eliminated the shoving your breath into somebody's mouth. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's so I know that's a concern with all the COVID stuff and just in general, because when I taught, I had the mouth guard thing in my briefcase, that you could use with it. So I just want to throw that out there for just lack of any other reason but trivia, maybe, but
And there's a lot of companies, and we'll talk about that when we get to the everyday carry stuff.
yeah.
They make all kinds of stuff now for that kind of stuff. I would do the mouth to mouth thing too, because all it's doing is just raising the percentage that compressions alone will raise the survival rate by like, I want to say like 20-30% or something like that. But with the mouth to mouth, you add another like 10%.
So they've eliminated it,
Mhm.
but it's still a
It's still
available
taught.
resource.
Yeah, it's still
Okay.
taught. Yeah,
To do.
because at the end of the day, you're trying to get blood back pumping so the oxygen can
Okay.
get in there.
See, I didn't know that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So, really and truly, it's all about how much are you willing to do to get going? And I understand like people don't want to do that because, they're coughing up blood or they're throwing up. It's like, yes, that's disgusting. I know.
Yeah.
But, that's why I always try to tell people, try to do a little bit more training than you want to do.
Okay.
Just in case. And even ask your athletic trainers. I worked with one and they were awesome. They actually showed me a lot of things that, I didn't know you could do because it's just one of those like sports medicine. It's just its own little monster.
Yeah. I remember at Wiley, we had great sports training. Now I know there's a lot of our schools out there that don't even have a school nurse. They just have a secretary that's just assigned that job. But if you're lucky enough to have some kind of sports medicine person, but oh my gosh, we would go down there just with my staff for like 2 hours,
Mhm.
and they would show us how to stop a massive bleed.
That's
If there's a massive bleed, because you don't learn that stuff in service, but they said, here's how you pack the gauze. Here's what you do with this. This is what you need to have in your kit. And we'll get to that stuff in a little bit. But I found that interesting that you got this amazing resource of how to set a splint
Yeah.
and how to stop massive bleeding and you're thinking, I don't know if that's ever going to happen, but it can. I was very fortunate. The only bus wreck I was ever in, I didn't know I was in the bus wreck.
No.
I was in Dallas Fort Worth and a car ran up under the bumper in a yellow bus and the kids came to the front and said, "Hey, Mr. Lunny, a car just hit us." I didn't feel it. So we pulled over and it ended up being just a fender bender, kind of thing. But so in my mind, it's always been kind of one of those thoughts. So I was just lucky in 31 years that there wasn't anything more major, so yeah, I like that idea. Get as much training as you can. It's not wasted because it can be used on your family,
Yeah.
your friends. That you're not doing this training just for your band
Mhm.
or your choir or your orchestra. You're doing it so to help other people.
I think it also, I want to say it was American Heart Association. One of the things it says in this training, the most likely who you're going to do the CPR to is a family member. So you should learn how to do this really good.
Yeah. And I'll tell you a personal story. I went out to Los Angeles this New Year's for a little trip. My son and daughter-in-law went with me. It's the first time I've ever heard this announced on a plane before, but they came on the plane. And it was in the middle of the flight, and they go, "Is there any doctors or medical personnel? If there are, please turn on your call button right now." And my son, without even hesitating, just goes, "Tink,"
Mhm.
and hit it, and they took him back somewhere, and it ended up being something really. It was a girl that they thought maybe was having a seizure, and he kind of diagnosed things and did all that kind of stuff. But yeah, so it's a good thing to have because you don't know when someone's going to choke or someone's going to have a situation that even if you're not a medical professional, you might have enough ability
Mhm.
to sustain them until a professional arrives.
Correct. And, a lot of people, even people that have gone through the training, I find it kind of strange. I've heard them say, like, I'm scared to do something because I'll get sued or something like that. And it's like the Good Samaritan law is
That's right.
own little, like, gets rid of that. And maybe somebody might throw a wrench into that and try. But most of the times, things that do go in that, as long as there's some goodwill doing that, they usually get thrown out pretty quick.
Yeah, I agree with you.
You might go to court for one day.
Yeah, it's I can't think of because I've kind of looked into it with this podcast coming up, and I couldn't find one case
Yeah.
to where a person was held liable unless they just unless it wasn't in goodwill.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Let's say two people were in a fight,
Mhm.
and one got severely injured, and the other one did whatever, and then it made it worse for the other person.
Yeah.
But if it was in goodwill, it's I couldn't find any indication of that.
As a matter of fact, I think that there is precedence that if you don't render assistance and just walk away from it, that you're probably in a worse situation than if you tried to render aid and wasn't as successful as you want to be. But
Yeah, I could see that.
Morally, for sure.
Yeah, definitely morally, if not legally in a court of law. But the next thing you have on there, I find interesting because there was a time as we old band directors that mental health did not exist,
Mhm.
and I mean it didn't exist. No one was mentally healthy.
Which arguably, man.
Yeah.
Well,
We just
what do you mean used to be?
now, mental health training, it's like mental health. No one was mentally healthy, back then. So we just all kind of survived. But I think that's an important issue. So if you want to go into some of that about learning the signs and et cetera, go for that, JJ.
So a lot of what I don't know, I think I said this to you and I've said it to other people. You have never met a normal person in your life because that person has gone through some kind of trauma.
Yeah, you did. We had that discussion.
Um,
We've
it-
all had different levels of trauma in our life. Yeah.
and they happen very young, and it just, parents yelling at each other.
Mhm.
That's a form of trauma. There's even studies now that are arguing that, parents that fight at home, kids are starting to develop parts of the brains where they're seeing like these PTSD hit so hard that it looks like somebody went to war. Like the breeds are the very similar scanning wise, or however they do that. I'm not exactly sure how they do it. That was out of my scope real quick. But what I got from there was, nothing, anything can traumatize someone,
Mhm.
and everyone needs to understand everybody's journey is different, and everybody's got to be okay with that because it's somebody else. And I know that for people that know me are just like, you're a terrible person for saying that, because I'm like the complete opposite of that. But I guess that's where, 5 years ago, I couldn't fathom the person I am now. And we'll kind of go into that more.
Mhm.
One of the things as band directors or coaches, teachers in general, um, you're with those kids for a good chunk of time. And, I'm sure there are days you knew like Susie was not in a good mood, and that's weird. Like that shouldn't be normal for some
Yeah.
reason.
Or they're acting out
Yeah.
in rehearsal and you're going, that kid's never, something's going on. Yeah.
Or something,
Something happened.
something's going on.
Yeah.
And one of the things when I was doing some research, I found in AMI, they actually that hyperlink actually takes you to like the little trainings that they have for that, and
Oh,
little
cool.
signs that you can find that something, and it could be as simple as the kid is sleeping in your class. Some people go like, oh, the kid just stayed up all night. No, that kid might have actually, been trying to figure out how to bail out his parents because dad was drunk driving and mom is on the couch because she's also out for whatever reason. And, you know, that kid was having to be mom and dad to his three siblings. Like that's a thing.
Yeah.
And
It definitely is.
building relationships that are appropriate matter in this world, because you might be able to find something out about a kid that, no one else knew. And there were times where, before the wreck, after the wreck, and so on in my career, there are times kids have come and told me things that, Miss Firenza, I'm doing this to myself. I don't want to, but for some reason I just need help.
Yeah.
But that would have never happened unless I built that relationship.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I always believe in the adage of take care of the kid takes care of you.
Yeah.
So I always try to take care of my kids. They're going to learn music. They're going to be successful at it. They're also going to learn how to be better people,
Mhm.
because there might not be someone in their life that's willing to teach that. And we're also going to take care of the kids. And that means when we go somewhere, they will be fed, they will be hydrated, they will
Mhm.
be safe. And if something isn't happening, I hope that these kids trust me enough to come to me and tell me something's going on,
Yeah.
you know? And I'm sure you've had a couple of those in your career, Mike, where it was like, oh man. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's, there's some of those kids that we spend more time with them than their parents have time available. I'm not being disrespectful to a parent because sometimes they have to work 3 jobs just to pay the electric bill. You know what I mean? They're in that situation, cars repoed or whatever. So the kids at the band hall, until you kick them out of the band hall. And the next morning when I open the door, they're sitting against the door.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're waiting to get into the band hall. And it's we become their structure.
Mhm.
And it's and the far end of that is where you see kids now that I call my band grandbabies. They're the kids of kids I've had in band.
Oh, nice.
I call them my band grandbabies. But it's interesting to me how, if they've been traumatized by parents who I don't know, whether it's drugs, alcohol, arguing, crime, whatever, that they tend to look for spouses in their life that match what they grew up with.
Yeah.
And it's scary when I see that. You know what I mean? I see that, and then I see where they're headed now, and there's nothing I can do about it. But you're exactly right, JJ and Derek. Man, it's amazing because in music, in our field, we deal with emotion. Kids sense that.
Yeah.
And so they're more liable to come up to us with a problem than they are their parents. It's not a trust thing. They just know that we deal with music and emotion,
Yeah.
and they're feeling emotion. So it's just a natural outlier of that instead of something else. You know what I mean? Because it's a hard situation. I'm trying to be real diplomatic in terms. I'm not trying to throw parents, out, with this, but because there's some wonderful parents out there, and sometimes it's not economically. You know what I mean? I had some kids that both parents were surgeons,
Mhm.
and the old joke was, how do you how do you keep a secret from their parents? You tape it to their kid's forehead because they never see their kid.
Yeah.
Because they both work 20 hours a day and sleep 4 hours, and the kid just exists, so it's not an economic thing at all times, but we've got to be able to fill that void. We might be the father figure or the brother figure for that particular kid.
Or certain students with certain cultures, they don't like to go to their parents and talk about this kind of stuff with them.
My dad was that way.
Yeah.
It was a sign of weakness to show emotion.
Yes.
That's how I grew up with my dad. It was a sign of weakness.
The boys don't cry.
Boys don't cry. If you want to cry, I'm going to give you something to cry about.
Yes.
That's how I grew up, and that's not the right way to do it. But he raised me like he was raised. He wasn't nefarious. He was a wonderful man, by the way. Did a lot of great things for me. But you're right. We tend to raise our kids the way we were raised, and we try to break some of that cycle. But sometimes we as directors are part of breaking that cycle.
Yes.
And that's a tough line to draw.
Yeah, that's really tough.
They're the parents and I'm the band director and I'm telling their kid what to do here.
But yes, with the mental health training, I really do think people need more training on that. I don't think we do that enough in general. Because I think we still have there's communities and cultures out there that still do the boys don't cry kind of logic. Which I'll fight that. I'll gladly die on that hill. I'll go for it. But it's just one of those take the time to learn these steps. If you see something, say it and put it in writing and do the follow up because it matters. And it, because one, we care about these kids. We see them all the time. We taught them since insert grade here all the way till they graduate, right? So it's important to you to do that. And I've caught a couple times where it might be a little we'll go into the counselor's office a little too often. It might feel like that, but it's better for everyone if you do, because you might catch something that no one saw coming. And then it's going to be okay if you do.
And I'm going to throw one thing in there too. It's worked for me for years and it helped me for years, is when a student comes to you and says, Mr. Laney, I've got something can I talk to you in confidence and tell you something? I always come back with, yes, as long as it doesn't involve someone being injured or there's some kind of legal issue. I just want you to know before you talk to me that if it goes to that level, I have to go to the appropriate people. Said, but you can speak to me in confidence, but if it gets to that level, I've got to go to the counselors. I've got to, because I'm not trained to take care of all that. And I never once had, maybe they changed what they were going to say. I don't know, but they never once went, oh, well, never mind then. And walked off. They always went, well, or they said, well, Mr. Laney, I think there's a kid in band that might want to hurt themselves. I said, well, I just told you. I said, okay, let's talk about it. And that way, then I would go to the counselor and talk about it. Now, it gets real heavy, but it's more important part of our job because we're raising citizens and people, and music's fun.
Yes.
I love music. I mean, music's been my life, and
Really?
but it's, I don't hunt, I don't fish, I just spend time with my grandsons and I do music, you know? But what's more important than that is hopefully that we're raising citizens and the people, they're becoming better people because of it. And because of guys like you coming out and being vulnerable and telling us what you went through, I think that might help some of the listeners know that, they're not alone out there, man.
Right.
Like-
And it kind of comes back to Mike and I have kind of adopted one of our catchphrases around here. We got it from Stephen Cox is the student is our product.
Yeah.
For lack of a better way to put it, it's not trophies or anything else. We are more interested in great people and helping people be great than what our contest resume looks like, if you will. So
Yeah.
it's all part and parcel to that. I'm not trying to.
Oh, no, you're right. I mean, I look back at high school, I can remember the times that major things happened and then I talked to my band director, but I honestly can't tell you what we played for contest my sophomore year. Yeah. So I know, I think we did, but it's funny how even as a kid, the things I remember are the things that were the important stuff. And the music was the music and it was important, but yeah.
But I think it speaks to what Mr. Firenza is saying is that we have to be, as the educators, as the adults in their life, be not so engrossed in what we have to teach that day or which section of the music we're going over. Are we paying attention to the people that are sitting in front of us and recognizing abnormalities or anomalies in their activity or the way that they're presenting and or interacting with people?
Yes, I like that. And one way to really make students feel more safe when they're talking to you is my mom taught me this, said your heart faces who you care about. So if they're talking to you, don't be bent over your desk doing stuff and moving things around and stapling papers.
Be present. Yeah.
If they want to talk, just turn around and look right at them and turn your heart towards them.
Yeah.
And you can see the emotion on their face immediately. And it's like, no, we're dropping everything. What are we talking about?
Yeah.
So it's important and it's an important part of what we do. Yeah.
But I've never put it in the context of what JJ is saying of that's an important aspect of maintaining mental health for ourselves and those around us.
I never have. Yeah, you're right.
As opposed to just being courteous or polite.
Yeah.
It's important to recognize that somebody may be struggling.
Yeah, and it makes us more mentally healthy to help others. That makes perfect sense, but I've never thought about that. And I'm really old,
And I don't know, there's also times in my life like people look at you kind of differently when you've gone through what you've gone through in your life. I guess
they don't know how to approach you.
Yeah, it's for me, I guess the body knows kind of deal too. Because I think when you called me, which is kind of funny, or when you asked me initially to do this,
yeah, we were just having dinner, having barbecue dinner after a workshop,
and it was I think it was like the week after, like anniversary or something like that. I can't remember.
Yeah, it was exactly a week.
Was not in the mental state to talk about it at that time.
Yeah, could you remember? I hope I approached it correctly because I mentioned it to you and I said, but if you're not ready to do this, it'll never be mentioned again. Said if you're ready to do this, that I'm all, let's do it.
Yeah.
But I knew it was an important part of what's changed your life, and eventually for the better, but it was traumatic.
And what's funny though, I think when I text you and everything that week at the anniversary of the Christmas parade, and we'll talk about that.
Oh yeah, that was great.
It's very weird. Like I really don't like that time of year still. It's just like, man, I don't feel good right now. It's 'cause, the body knows it's gone.
It does. It does.
So take that into account if you've ever gone through something like that. Geography and time of year and anything can trigger you. And you should also know that for your kids. Like be very careful, especially after you had a successful suicide. Be very careful what you say, because small towns in particular, things get thrown all over the place. They did it this way, they did it that way. And if you say it a certain way, somebody might get triggered from it that was close to that student. So
Yeah.
um, that's why I really think we need more mental training and more crisis, uh, crisis aversion training as well,
Yeah.
just to have that peace of mind for everybody involved.
Yeah, and it's great to do it up front because I had a student that left band one day and committed suicide. Went home and committed suicide, and luckily at the school I was at, we were completely surrounded by professionals
Mhm.
that came to the band hall and took care of this situation, and I wasn't just left out to float away
Yeah.
with this situation. But you're right, something as simple as like, we thought it might be appropriate to leave her chair at the concert, leave it empty because she'd committed suicide. And our counselor said that would actually be the worst thing
Yeah.
that you can do at this point. Said it's
'Cause that's
we're not
something-
trying to ignore what happened,
Mhm.
but we don't want that to be the center of attention for an entire concert, that this empty chair is sitting there. So you've got to deal with it within the context of your community.
Mhm.
You got to read the room. And most importantly, reach out to those professionals because we can get all the training we want, but we're still not trained like those people that do this every single day.
And also, that's a military band tradition, right? With the
It is.
empty chair.
It is.
So a lot of stuff that pertained to that kind of thing, believe it or not, we actually did bring it to like the band's attention of, do y'all want to do this? And we'll kind of go further into it when we get to the Christmas parade part of this talk.
Yeah.
But a lot of there was transparency when we knew like this isn't a decision that we can just make and the kids are going to be okay with it. So that kind of goes into hand in hand. But before you take it to them, you're talking to those professionals, you're talking to the school, the region centers therapists, all of them. It's just one of those deals. So take the time, make connections with your students. Seriously, make connections, man. You'll be shocked what you can pull off with the kid that that's no good and is a terrible student and is a terrible person, and turns out they just needed somebody to believe in them. What a crazy thought.
Yeah, what a crazy thought. Man, that's all great stuff, JJ.